So, Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi Lila, Chapter 1, starting with verse 92. The foremost process of cheating is to desire to achieve liberation by merging into the Supreme, for this causes the permanent disappearance of loving service to Krishna. Purport. The desire to merge into the impersonal Brahman is the subtlest type of atheism. Disguised in the dress of liberation is encouraged, one becomes completely unable to traverse the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can read also, just move a little closer here, so the microphone.
Shall I read the next one?
Yeah.
The prefix pra in the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam indicates that the desire for liberation is completely rejected. Purport. This is an annotation by Sri Dara Swami, the great commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay. Next, all kinds of activities, both auspicious that are detrimental to the discharge of transcendental loving service to Lord Sri Krishna, are actions of darkness, of ignorance. Purport. The poetical comparison of Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda to the sun and moon is very significant. The living entities are spiritual sparks, and their constitutional position is to render devotional service to the Supreme Lord in full Krishna consciousness. So-called pious activities and other ritualistic performances, pious or impious, as well as a desire to escape from material existence, are all considered to be coverings of these spiritual sparks. The living entities must get free from these superfluous coverings and fully engage in Krishna consciousness. The purpose of the appearance of Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda is to dispel the darkness of the soul. Before their appearance, all these superfluous activities of the living entities were covering Krishna consciousness. But after the appearance of these two brothers, people's hearts are becoming cleansed, and they are again becoming situated in the real position of Krishna consciousness.
95. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, this darkness of ignorance is removed.
More.
Text 98. But these two brothers, Lord and Lord Nityananda, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one meet the two kinds of Bhagavatas, persons or things in relationship with the personality of Godhead.
One of the Bhagavats is the great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is a pure devotee absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. Next.
Through the actions of these two Bhagavatas, the Lord instills the mellows of transcendental loving service into the heart of a living being, and thus the Lord, in the heart of his devotee, comes under the control of the devout love.
The first wonder is that both brothers appear simultaneously, and the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of the heart.
These two, the sun and moon, are very kind to the people of the world. Thus, for the good fortune of all, they have appeared on the horizon of Bengal. Purport. The celebrated ancient capital of the Sena dynasty, which was known as Godades or Goda, was situated in what is now the modern district of Malta. Later, this capital was transferred to the ninth or central island on the western side of the Ganges at Navadvip, which is now known as Mayapur and was then called Godapura. Lord Chaitanya appeared there, and Lord Nityananda came there and joined him from the district of Birdhum. They appeared on the horizon of Godadesa to spread the science of Krishna consciousness, and it is predicted that as the sun and moon gradually move west, the movement they began 500 years ago will come to the Western civilizations, by their mercy. Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu drive away the 5 kinds of ignorance of the conditioned souls. In the Mahabharata, at Yoga Parva, 43rd chapter, these 5 kinds of ignorance are described. They are, first, accepting the body to be the self. Second, making material sense gratification one's standard of enjoyment. 3. Being anxious due to material identification. 4. Lamenting. And 5. Thinking that there is anything beyond the absolute truth. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya eradicate these 5 kinds of ignorance. Whatever one sees or otherwise experiences should know to be simply an exhibition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's energy. Everything is a manifestation of Krishna.
Finish?
Yes.
Krishna. Read another one.
Let us therefore worship the holy feet of these 2 lords. Thus one can be of all difficulty the path of self-realization. 104.
I have invoked the benediction of the Lord's with 2 verses, text 1 and 2 of his chapter. Now please hear attentively the purport of the 3rd verse. I purposely avoid extensive description for fear of increasing the bulk of the book. I shall describe the essence as concisely. And then a very important verse. Mitam chasaram chavacho hi vagmi. Mitam chasaram chavacho hi vagmitahi. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Very important. Simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all the faults of ignorance, and thus one will achieve deep love for Krishna. This is the path of peace. If one patiently taught the glories of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu and their devotees, devotional activities, names and fame, along with the mellows of their transcendental loving exchanges, one will learn the essence of the absolute truth. Therefore I have described these in Caitanya Caritamrta with logic and discrimination. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Caitanya Caritamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purports of Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi Lila, 1st chapter, describing the spiritual masters. Okay, so you can go on.
Chapter 2, Text 1. I offer my obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusive truth, which is full of the crocodiles of various theories. Purport. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, even an inexperienced boy with no educational culture can be saved from the ocean of nescience, which is full of various types of philosophical doctrines that are like dangerous aquatic animals. The philosophy of the Buddha, the argumentative presentations of the Gyanis, the yoga systems of Patanjali and the systems of philosophers like Kanada, Kapila, and Dattatreya are dangerous creatures in the ocean of nescience. By the grace of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, we have real understanding of the essence of knowledge by avoiding these sectarian views and accepting the lotus feet of Krishna as the ultimate goal of life. Let us all worship Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for his gracious mercy to the conditioned souls.
O my merciful Lord Chaitanya, may the nectarine Ganges waters of your transcendental activities flow on the surface of my desert-like tongue. Beautifying these waters are the lotus flowers of singing, dancing, and loud chanting of Krishna's holy name, which are the pleasure abodes of unalloyed devotees. These devotees are compared to swans, ducks, and bees. The river's flowing produces a melodious sound that gladdens their ears. Purport. Our tongues always engage in vibrating useless sounds that do not help us realize the transcendental peace. The tongue is compared to a desert because a desert needs a constant supply of refreshing water to make it fertile and fruitful. Water is the substance most needed in the desert. The transient pleasure derived from mundane topics of art, culture, politics, sociology, dry philosophy, poetry, and so on, is compared to a mere drop of water, because although such topics have a qualitative feature of transcendental pleasure, they are saturated with the modes of material nature. Therefore, neither collectively nor individually can they satisfy the vast requirements of the desert-like tongue. Despite crying in various conferences, for the desert-like tongue continues to be parched. For this reason, people from all parts of the world must call for the devotees of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who are compared to swans swimming around the beautiful lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya, or bees humming around his lotus feet in transcendental pleasure, searching for honey. The dryness of material happiness cannot be moistened by so-called philosophers who cry for Brahman liberation and similar dry speculative objects. The urge of the soul proper is different. The soul can be solaced only by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his many bona fide devotees who never leave the lotus feet of the Lord to become imitation Mahaprabhus, but all cling to his lotus feet like bees that never leave a honey lotus flower. Sri Chaitanya movement of Krishna consciousness is full of dance and singing about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. It is compared herein to the pure waters of the Ganges, which are full of lotus flowers. The enjoyers of these lotus flowers are the pure devotees who are like bees and swans. They chant like the flowing of the Ganges, the river of the celestial kingdom. The author desires such sweetly flowing waves to cover his tongue. He humbly compares himself to a materialistic person who's always engaged in dry talk from which they derive no satisfaction. If they were to use their dry tongues to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as exemplified by Lord Chaitanya, they would taste sweet nectar and enjoy life.
Text 3. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Sri Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Chandra and all glories to the devotees of Lord Gauranga. Text 4. Let me describe the meaning of the third verse of the first 14. It is an auspicious vibration that describes the absolute truth.
What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body, and the Lord, known as the Supersoul, is but the localized plenary portion. Lord Chaitanya is the impersonality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full with six opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. Purport: the compilers of the Upanishads speak very highly of the impersonal Brahman. The Upanishads, which are considered the most elevated portion of the Vedic literatures, are meant for persons who desire free from material association, for approach a bona fide spiritual master for enlightenment. The prefix upa indicates that one must receive knowledge of the absolute truth from the spiritual master. One who has faith in the spiritual master actually receives transcendental instruction, and as his attachment for material life slackens, he is able to advance on this path. Knowledge of the transcendental science of the Upanishads can free one from the entanglement of material existence in the material world. When thus liberated, one can be elevated to the spiritual kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by advancement in spiritual life. The beginning of spiritual enlightenment is realization of the impersonal Brahman. Such realization is effected by the gradual negation of material variegatedness. Impersonal Brahman realization is a partial, distant experience of the absolute truth that one achieves through the rational approach. It is one seeing a hill from a distance and taking it to be a smoky cloud. A hill is not a smoky cloud, but it appears to be one from a distance because of our imperfect vision. An imperfect or smoky realization of the absolute truth, spiritual variegatedness, is conspicuous by his absence. The experience is therefore called Advaitavad, a realization of the oneness of the absolute. The impersonal glowing effulgence of Brahman consists only of the personal rays of the supreme bodily rays of the Supreme Godhead, Sri Krishna. Since Sri Gaurasundar or Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is identical with Sri Krishna himself, the Brahman effulgence consists of the rays of his transcendental body. Similarly, the soul, which is called Param Atma, is a plenary representative of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Antaryami, the Supersoul, is everyone's heart, is the controller of all living entities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, wherein the Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham ridi sanivishtaha. I am situated in everyone's heart. The Bhagavad Gita 5:29 also states, Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram, indicating that the Supreme Lord, acting as his expansion, as the Supersoul, is the proprietor of everything. Similarly, the Brahma Samhita 5:35 states, Andantara sta paramanu chayantara sta. The Lord is present everywhere within the heart of every living entity and within each and every atom as well. This is the Supersoul feature of the Lord's leading. The Supersoul feature is all pervading. Furthermore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also the master of all wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Because he is Sri Krishna himself, he is described Purna, or complete, in the feature of Lord Chaitanya. The Lord is an ideal renouncer, just as Sri Rama was the ideal king. Lord Chaitanya accepted the order of sannyas and exemplified exceedingly wonderful principles in his own life. No compare to him in the order of, although in Kali Yuga acceptance of sannyas is generally forbidden. Lord Chaitanya accepted it because he is complete in his renunciation. Others cannot imitate him, but can only follow in his footsteps as far as possible. Those who are unfit for this order of life are strictly forbidden by the injunctions of the Shastras. Accept it. Lord Chaitanya renunciation, as well as all of their opulences. He is therefore the highest principle of the absolute truth. In an analytical study of the truth of Lord Chaitanya, one will find that he is not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. No one is greater than or even equal to him. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:7, the Lord says, to Arjuna, Mattak Paratram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. There is no truth superior to me. Thus it is here confirmed that there is no truth higher than Lord Sri Chaitanya. The impersonal Brahman is the goal of those who cultivate the study of books of transcendental knowledge, and the Supersoul is the goal of those who perform the yoga practices. One who knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead surpasses realization of both Brahman and Paramatma, because Bhagavan is the ultimate platform of absolute knowledge. The Personality of Godhead is the complete form of Satchit Ananda, full life, bliss, and knowledge. By realization of the Sat portion of the complete whole, unlimited existence, one realizes the impersonal Brahman aspect of the Lord. By realization of the Chit portion of the complete whole, unlimited knowledge, one can realize the localized aspect of the Lord, Paramatma. But neither of these partial realizations can help one realize Ananda, or complete bliss. Without such realization of Ananda, knowledge of the Absolute Truth is incomplete. This verse of the Caitanya Caritamrta by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is confirmed by a parallel statement in the Tattva Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. In the 8th part of the Tattva Sandarbha, it is said that the Absolute Truth is sometimes approached as impersonal Brahman, which, although spiritual, is only a partial representative of the Absolute Truth. Narayan, the predominating deity in Vaikuntha, is to be known as an expansion of Sri Krishna, but Sri Krishna is the original Absolute Truth, the object of the transcendental love of all living entities.
Text 6. Impersonal Brahman, the localized Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead are three subjects, and the glowing effulgence, the partial manifestation, and the original form are their three respective predicates. Text 7. A predicate always follows its subject. Now I shall explain the meaning of this verse according to the revealed scriptures. Krishna, the original form of the personality of Godhead, is the summum bonum of the all-pervading Vishnu. He is all-perfect knowledge and all-perfect bliss. He is the supreme transcendence. He whom Srimad Bhagavatam describes as the son of Nanda Maharaj has descended to earth as Lord Chaitanya. Purport. According to the rules of rhetorical arrangement for efficient composition in literature, a subject should be mentioned before its predicate. The Vedic literature frequently mentions Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and therefore these three terms are widely known as the subject of transcendental understanding. But it is not widely known that what is approached as the impersonal Brahman is the effulgence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental body. Nor is it widely known that the Super Soul or Paramatma is only a partial representation of Lord Chaitanya, who is identical with Bhagavan himself. Therefore, the descriptions of Brahman as the effulgence of Lord Chaitanya, the Paramatma as his partial representation, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna as identical with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be verified by evidence from authoritative Vedic literatures. The author wants to establish first that the essence of the Vedas is the Vishnu Tattva, the Absolute Truth, Vishnu, the all-pervading Godhead. The Vishnu Tattva has different categories, of which the highest is Lord Krishna, the ultimate Vishnu Tattva, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita and throughout the Vedic literature. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the same Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is described as Nanda Sutta, the son of King Nanda. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Nanda Sutta has again appeared as Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he bases this statement on his understanding that the Vedic literature concludes there is no difference between Lord Krishna and Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. This the author will prove. If it is thus proved that Sri Krishna is the origin of all tattvas truths, namely Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, and that there is no difference between Sri Krishna and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it will not be difficult to understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also the same origin of all tattvas. The same absolute truth as he is revealed to students of different realizations is called Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan.
Next. In terms of the various manifestations, he is known in three features called impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the original personality of Godhead. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained the word Bhagavan in his Bhagavat Sandarbha, the personality of Godhead being full of all conceivable and inconceivable potencies, is the absolute truth. Whole impersonal Brahman is the partial manifestation of the absolute truth, realized in the absence of such complete potencies. The first syllable of the word Bhagavan is Bha, which means sustainer and protector. The next letter, Ga, means leader, pusher, and creator. Va means dwelling. All living entities dwell in the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord dwells within the heart of every living being. Combining all these concepts, the word Bhagavan carries the import of inconceivable potency and knowledge, energy, strength, opulence, power, and influence, devoid of all varieties of inferiority. Without such inconceivable potencies, one cannot fully sustain or protect. Our modern civilization is sustained by scientific arrangements devised by many great scientific brains. We can just imagine, therefore, the gigantic brain whose arrangement sustains the gravity of the unlimited number of planets and satellites, and who creates the unlimited space they float. If one considers the intelligence needed to orbit man-made satellites, one cannot be fooled into thinking that there is not a gigantic intelligence responsible for the arrangements of the various planetary systems. There is no reason to believe that all the gigantic planets float in space without the superior arrangement of the superior intelligence. This subject is clearly dealt with in the Bhagavad Gita, where the personality of Godhead says, I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. Where the planets not held on the grip of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would all scatter like dust in the air. Such scientists can only impractically explain this inconceivable strength of the personality of Godhead. The potencies of the syllables Ba, Ga, and Va apply in terms of many different meanings. Therefore, his different potent agents, the Lord protects and sustains everything, but he himself personally protects and sustains only his devotees, just as the king personally sustains and protects his own children, while entrusting the protection of the and sustenance of the state to various administrative agents. The Lord is the leader of the devotees, as we learn from Bhagavad Gita, which mentions that the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally instructs his loving devotees how to make certain progress on the path of devotion and thus surely approach the kingdom of God. The Lord is also the recipient of all the adoration offered by his devotees, for whom he is the object and the goal. For his devotees, the Lord creates a favorable condition for developing a sense of transcendental love of Godhead. Sometimes he does this by taking away the devotee's material attachments by force and baffling all his material protective agents. For thus, the devotees completely depend on the Lord's protection. In this way, the Lord proves himself the leader of his devotees. The Lord is not directly attached to the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, for he is eternally busy in the enjoyment of transcendental bliss with paraphernalia composed of his internal potencies. Yet, as the initiator of the material energy, as well as the marginal potency, the living beings, he expands himself as the Purusha avatars, who are invested with potencies similar to his. The Purusha avatar are also in the category of Bhagavat Tattva, because each and every one of them is identical with the original form of the personality of Godhead. The living entities are his infinitesimal particles and are qualitatively one with him. They are sent into the material world for material enjoyment to fulfill their desires to be independent individuals. But still they are subject to the supreme will of the Lord. The Lord deputes himself in the state of the supersoul to supervise the arrangements for such material enjoyment. The example of a temporary fair is quite appropriate in this connection. If the citizens of the state assemble in a fair to enjoy for a short period, the government deputes a special officer to supervise it. Such an officer is invested with all government power, therefore he is identical with the government. When the fair is over, there is no need for such an officer, and he returns home. The Paramatma is compared. The living being are not all in all. They are undoubtedly parts of the Supreme Lord and are qualitatively one with him, yet they are subject to his control. Thus they are never equal to the Lord or one with him. The Lord who associates with the living being as the Paramatma, our supreme living being. No one, therefore, should view the tiny living beings and the supreme living being to be on the equal level. The all-pervading truth is that which exists eternally during the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world, and in which the living beings rest in trance, is called the impersonal Brahma. How long do you want to go on? That's done. Okay? Very much. So we got up to text 11.
Yes.
Prabhupada is very enlivened by these verses. You can see such. Thank you all very much.